I think what I really learned in all of this was to be true to myself, to be true to my inner voice. And I began to see that we really do have a power. Our own lives really do make a difference. Just by being more conscious of the food that we eat, we can heal ourselves, we can heal the environment, we can heal this planet. When I was younger, I think my family was quite disappointed in me. My father had built a very successful business, Baskin-Robbins, and he had groomed me to follow in his footsteps. But as I began to mature, my own conscience pulled me in a different direction. My father had accomplished the American dream. Yet I felt drawn to a deeper dream, a dream of a society at peace with its conscience, because it lived with respect for life, with reverence for life. And soon enough I left. And I walked away from the ice cream cone-shaped swimming pool in our backyard. And the whole lifestyle, and I told my family I did not want a trust fund, and I didn't want any access or reliance on the family fortune. I really wanted to follow my integrity, follow the call of my conscience, and just see what that would do. I had no idea, but being young and reckless and a little flippant, I felt like giving it a shot. And so I left the family's empire and moved to a little island off the coast of British Columbia with my wife, and we cleared land and we built a log cabin. We began to grow all of our own food. And we began to weave ourselves back into the web of life and trying to dig our roots down into the earth community and feel what that would be like. And lived on about $600 a year for about 7 years. And it was a real pendulum swing, I'm sure you can tell. And my father and family, I mean, I can really understand his point, thinking I was crazy. He had worked so hard to attain a success and had done so, and here I was walking away from it. He couldn't understand. I didn't understand him real well either then, I must admit. I was sick, physically. I'd had a form of polio as a child that had left me for a time paralyzed from the waist down. I'd had some fairly substantial health problems when I was growing up. And this led me to be very, very interested in how I could regain my health. I explored and experimented with different diets. And I began to look at what most of us eat in this culture. And I began to wonder what impact that has on our health. Heart attacks, certain cancers, osteoporosis, diabetes. The major diseases of our society may be caused in part by what we eat. One of the physicians who helped me to understand why is Dr. Michael Clapper.
I first woke up, so to speak, when I was working on the anesthesia service, learning how to put people to sleep. And I was seeing my patients for the next day's surgery for coronary artery bypass surgery in order to bypass clogged arteries in their heart. Because it was late at night, I drew the man's blood test, and when I took the blood to the laboratory and had it processed, I couldn't believe my eyes. Now, normally, this liquid layer floating on top of the blood clot is quite transparent. It's a yellow, but quite clear. You can see right through it. The blood in this patient's tube, however, was anything but clear. The serum floating on his clot was thick and greasy white. It looked like glue. In fact, it stuck to the sides of the blood tube when I shook the tube. I went back to the patient. I said, Mr. Phillips, did you eat before you came to the hospital tonight? He said, yes. I said, what did you have? He said, I had a cheeseburger and a milkshake. And when he said that, I realized that what I was looking at in his tube was all the fat in the beef burger, all the butter fat in the cheese, and the butter fat in the ice cream and in the milkshake. And all this fat had oozed out into his blood and actually turned his blood fatty. Well, 30, 40, 50 years of keeping your blood very fatty creates changes in the blood vessels that are very dangerous.
Over the years, arteries can become clogged with fatty material. Then a blood clot can form, blocking the blood flow completely. If the artery leads to the heart, the lack of oxygen can cause heart muscle to die. That's a heart attack. If the clogged artery leads to the brain, the patient has a stroke.
The next morning, we took Mr. Phillips to the operating room, and I put him to sleep, and the surgeon opened up his chest. And from these arteries, he began pulling out yellow, greasy deposits of fatty material called atherosclerosis.
You know, if you were to die of a heart attack, and it's the most common cause of death in the country today, you might have an autopsy performed. It's a fairly common procedure. It used to be more common, but it's still done many, many times. What would happen is your body would be laid out on the autopsy table, and they would cut open your chest and dig around in there and find the coronary artery, the artery feeding the heart, that had gotten plugged up, depriving the heart of its flow of oxygen and blood, killing it, killing you. And they'd find that artery and they'd ream it out. They'd literally pull out a thick sausage-shaped piece of fatty, waxy material that killed you. And they send it very carefully down to the pathology lab. Next day, the results come back, and they always say the same thing. This has been done approximately 3 million times in medical research in the world. The results always say the same thing. They say, in effect, saturated fat and cholesterol. Now, never once have they come back and said broccoli and tofu.